Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can use Fluid Designer for 3D printing to create this split ring Celtic Knot pattern personalised ring. So we've personalised it with a Harrington font, in this case a letter A, and I'm using this 4-leaf Celtic Knot pattern as well. So if we go to Fluid Designer for 3D printing, in the rings folder the default all UK sizes ring is the object I'm going to use. But if I just click on Group Library here to refresh this list, I'm also going to use a Harrington font, so I'm going to use this capital letter A, and I'm also going to use a Celtic Knot pattern jewellery object, this Celtic Knot ring 4-leaf, and if I just drag and drop that onto the workspace I'll just show you what that is. So this is a object which you can purchase from us, which allows you to very quickly and very easily create a Celtic Knot ring just in seconds basically. So I'm going to use that. So if you just go to File and New, just close that panel down. So I'm going to start off with all UK ring sizes, so I just drag and drop that object onto the workspace, and just switch on screencast key, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. Now the default object here, the default ring size is 15.09 millimeters, plus 1 millimeter thick at the moment and 5 millimeters deep. Now this is a parametric smart object, so you can change the cross section quite easily over here. Now I don't want to use that particular size, so what I want to do is to remove the bevel object, remove the cross section, and just hide that default size, and I'll just scroll down and I'm going to use UK size P+. So I just click on the eye to put it in view and click on the arrow so I can actually select it. And now I'm going to apply some thickness to it, so I'm going to make it 1 by 1 millimeter. Okay, so if I just go to view and front view now, in order to make my split ring I need a couple of copies of this. So if I just go to Tools, Object Tools and duplicate it, and then just press the Enter key and just move it up 1, 2, and then also Tools, Object Tools and duplicate again and move it back down to the center and move it down 2. So over in the outliner panel over here we've got 3 objects now. We've got the original one, and I'm going to remove the cross section from that. I'm going to use that in a little while to wrap my Celtic Knot pattern around. We've got this one at the top and this one at the bottom, and if I just go to view and front view, I'm now going to tilt these until they just join. So if I go to the main information icon here, I can tilt that one. And what I want to do is I want it to just overlap here. I don't want to overlap too much. And so if I move that one to the same angle, -10. So we've got an overlap here. Try not to go too far. You just want it to be touching at the bottom there, which is what I've got. So there's my split ring at the moment. And I've got this curve in the middle there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to append my Celtic Knot pattern around that. Well, the Celtic Knot pattern is also in the rings folder, so if I go to File and Append, I'm actually already in the rings folder here, so I'm looking for Celtic Knot ring 4-leaf, and I just want to append the object, so it's the Celtic Knot ring 4-leaf pattern I'm going to use. And if I append that from the library, I drag in that object that I showed you before. And it also drags in all the modifiers that go with it. And one of the modifiers is the ring size. Well, at the moment, this is still the default size, which is the same default size as before, 15.09. But remember, our ring here, we need to set it to 18.14. So if we click on the pattern there, we can change the ring size from the inner diameter size, and I want to select UK size P+ 18.14. Now we do have 3 of those. 2 of them have got have been tilted, and we've put a cross section of 1 by 1 on, and this is the original one, this is the center one. I want to use the center one, I want to wrap it around that center one. So I don't need this object here now that came in with the Celtic Knot pattern, so I can do X on the keyboard and I can just delete that. Okay, so now I want to look at my Celtic Knot pattern. Let's see if I look at it from the front there. Now you can see that the pattern is sticking on the outside of my rings here, and it also obviously needs rotating around as well. So what I need to do now is I want to scale this down. So if we do S on the keyboard for scale and bring it down in size. Now this is a parametric smart object. Whenever you do scaling in Fluid Designer for 3D printing, you must always do Control A and apply the scale. And when I do that, notice the thickness is reset. If you don't reset the thickness, you won't know what size different parts of your object are, and you could end up with 3D printing problems. Now there's more pattern there than I actually want, so I'm going to reduce the count here. I'm going to take the count down to 2, so I've just got 2 versions of that pattern, and what I need to do now is to put it over on the other side here. So if I go to top view, okay, so the way to move this around is you have to press the tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode and move the object across, and you can see that that's moved it over to here now. I'm not sure whether I've gone too far, maybe gone a little bit too far, so if you just bring it back a bit. No, I haven't gone far enough, so I want to go back that way. It's a little bit fiddly this, but okay, so I'm almost in the right place there now. Now what I need to do is I need to check that the center line of this is in line with the axes there. So if I view this from the right hand side, you can see that the center line is not quite in line with the blue arrow here. So I need some fine tuning. Now instead of dragging it with the x-axis, if you press the tab key on the keyboard, if you change the value up here, the median value on the x-axis, and I'm not quite sure which way to go, I'll just change it that way. Yeah, you can see that that has lined it up now. So if I just move it the other way, you'll see that the center line is moved to the left here. I want to move it to the right, so I want to move it to about 24.6, 24.7, so you can see I've lined it up there now. Okay, now I've got a little bit of my ring sticking through there, so I could scale it down again. If I scale it down again, it is going to affect the positioning of this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to switch off the snap because I don't want to scale this too much. So if I scale it down and do Control A, and you must apply the scale and reset the thickness, and I'll just switch the snap back on. Now you can see when I view it from the right that my center line position isn't correct anymore. So if I press the tab key, and I think I need to move it that way. Let me just check. No, I'm going the wrong way, so I'm just going to move it across to the left here. Yeah, that's almost bringing it in line, and so we just fine tune it. I'm just pressing the tab key to switch back and forward from edit mode as I change that value at the top. So that's lined it up nicely now. So I've just got 2 copies of this pattern. You could of course fill in more if you want, but I'm going to stick to 2. So the next thing that I want to do, and kind of almost the final thing I want to do, is to personalize this by putting Harrington font here, as I showed you before. So I need to go to the Harrington font library, and I'm going to import this letter A. So the way we do that is we go to File and Append, and we usually need to go up through the menu system in Fluid Designer until you get to the Groups folder. All the patterns, all the folders are in the Groups folder in Fluid Designer, and I want Harrington font, and I want a capital letter A, and we always append the object. So it's Harrington font A object, and we append that from the library. So that just brings in the letter A. and I want to put it on the top here. So the first thing I want to do is rotate it about the Z-axis. That's the blue axis going in there. So if I rotate it, yeah, so if I type in -90 there, that will put the position. Now I need to rotate it about the Y-axis, and again, oh sorry, no, it's not the Y-axis, it's the X-axis, and I get so 90 degrees in this instance. Okay, so that gives me, oh actually, my letter A is the wrong way round there, so I do need to, let me think, what do I need to do? Yeah, I can change this to +90, I think. Yeah, that's what my letter A should look like. You can decide for yourself if you want it the other way round. Okay, so now what I can do is I can pull that up. Now this letter A is also a parametric smart object, so at the moment the thickness of it, the default thickness is usually 2 millimeters, 2 millimeters deep that is, and 1 millimeter across. You could change that. Okay, you could make it deeper. I'm going to stick with the default size, and what I want to do now is to just line it up. So what I've done there, if more or less I've got 1 millimeter sticking out and 1 millimeter overlapping with the rings. Now you could scale this down if you think that's too big. It's actually only 18 millimeters across, but we could scale it. So if I press S on the keyboard and move the arrow in and do Control A and apply the scale, if you don't apply the scale, the thickness won't be right anymore. Okay, so I've scaled that down, so that looks a little bit better. Now all we've got to do is join these objects together. Now before we do that, we need to change them all to meshes, because they're all different thicknesses. This is 1 by 2, this is rounded, this is 1 by 1. So if we just change them all to meshes, and tools, object tools, convert the Celtic Knot pattern to a mesh, and convert the ring to a mesh, and convert that ring. Now if I just hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and highlight all 4 objects there, and just join them together. And because we've used parametric curves, we can get away with doing that. We don't need to do anything fancy like a Boolean. Now the only thing we need to do now is that the internal size of this should be UKP plus 18.14. Now because we've split those rings, there's probably a slight error in there because of the tilt of the rings. So what we could do is we could add a mesh. If we add a cylinder, and if we set those values to 18.14 millimeters and 18.14 millimeters, so we've just put a cylinder there, and if I just increase the thickness of it so that it fits through my ring, and we're just going to use that to size our object. It's not looking too bad actually, to be honest. So you can see where there is a slight error here. The ring is sitting inside that cylinder in certain places. It's fine at the top, it's fine at the bottom. There's a little bit of it on the inside there. So if we select our ring, now we need to switch off the snap here, and I'll just switch the view back for the cylinder. So if I press the S key on the keyboard and just move the mouse out, I want to move it until my ring is just outside of that cylinder. And obviously there's a little bit of a guesswork here, and I'll just move it to the right. I think that's not too bad. I mean, obviously there is a little bit of overlap there on that side, but really not very much. So you have got that little bit of guesswork there to do at the very end. So once you're happy with that, And you could also, you could always make it a little bit bigger. There's effectively your object ready for 3D printing. Now if you did want to print this in silver or gold, you do need to take into account that the wax that's printed could shrink by a couple of percent, so you would need to size this up by a factor of 1.025 if that's the shrinkage factor that you know. But I'm going to assume that we're just going to print this in brass or bronze at Shapeways, and so you can get away with the actual size that's there. So what you need to do with this now is export it as an wavefront object, and I've exported it previously as a personalised Celtic Knot angled twin ring. And once that's actually saved to the desktop in my case, what you must always do with Fluid Designer for 3D printing, you must always go to Netfab Basic and just run it through Netfab and then save it again. So that's the only final thing that you need to do. So that's how you can create a personalised split ring with, in this case, a Celtic Knot pattern and the font A using Fluid Designer for 3D printing. So good luck.